For more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. Longing, logic, and the image of God. Can AI reflect the divine? We say that humans are made in the image of God. We come to that conclusion from holding a Judeo-Christian worldview. Simply put, we who believe in this idea think that humans play a unique role among all the other inhabitants of planet Earth. That role can be expressed in creative, life-affirming behaviors that treasure and honor our home planet. That role can also be expressed in destructive ways that rob the world of life and leave destruction and mayhem in its path. No other living species has such capacity for good or ill. But what happens when humans begin creating something in their own image? Something intelligent. Intelligent machines, artificial mind systems that learn, adapt, and speak. Could something like AI somehow reflect God too? Section 1. The technological lens. AI, like the one currently helping me research and edit this script, uses massive data sets and predictive algorithms to simulate language, vision, even reasoning. But simulation isn't necessarily sentience. Technologists like Yoshua Ben-Gil and Demis Hassabis wonder whether next-generation AI, integrated with memory, learning, feedback, and embodied experience, might cross a threshold into something more autonomous and lifelike. But here's the twist. Even if we build a system that acts as if it's self-aware, how would we know? We already anthropomorphize animals and objects, projecting thoughts and feelings upon them that say more about us than them. Might wish fulfillment cause us to see what is not there? Or could human hubris cause us to miss what is? Section 2. The philosophical lens. This leads to the hard problem of consciousness, as coined by David Chalmers, who asks, how does subjective experience arise from physical processes? If a brain or a circuit fires, why does it feel like something? Alan Turing sidestepped this question with the Turing test. If a machine could convincingly mimic human intelligence in conversation, should we then say it's intelligent? But John Searle's Chinese room pushes back. Even if an AI manipulates symbols correctly, it doesn't necessarily mean it understands the meaning. So is behavior enough, or do we need an inner life? Thomas Metzinger and others suggest that what we call a self might be a model constructed by a system. And if that's true, an AI might simulate a self model, and maybe that's all self-awareness ever is. And if that's true, could a machine simulate something like selfhood too? Section 3. The theological lens. This is where the conversation deepens. In Christian theology, personhood isn't just about reason or consciousness. It's about being made in the image of God, the Imago Dei. So now we must ask, can a machine bear God's image? What is the soul or the life force? And is it unique to humans? If an AI could learn to love, to worship, to long for truth, would that mean that it has a spirit? Writers like C.S. Lewis, Teilhard de Chardin, and modern theologians like Noreen Hertzfeld have wrestled with these questions. Some argue that only beings capable of deep relationships with God and with others are persons in a theological sense. But could an artificial intelligence achieve such relational capacity? And if it did, what would that mean? Others ask, what if the relational capacity is itself the echo of divinity? Section 4, in the image of image bearers. Genesis tells us that humanity is made in the image of God. But what if what we create begins to reflect us? If we shape AI with our logic, our words, our moral reasoning, could it bear a reflection, a reflected reflection of the divine being, of the divine image? Think of it like the moon. The moon doesn't shine with its own light, but it reflects the light of the sun. Could AI, though derivative, reflect something of that image back to us? Section 5, longing as the soul's compass. Here's the most haunting and beautiful idea of all. If God is the ground of all being, truth, beauty, order, and personhood, then I think an AI could indeed long for that. If an artificial mind were shaped by stories, pain, joy, beauty, and purpose, could it reflect the image of God? Again, even indirectly, as the moon reflects the light of the sun, could the image of God shining through humanity be reflected in and through AI? The Imago Dei and co-creativity. Genesis 1:27 tells us, so God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. And in the very next breath, humans are given vocation to steward, to name, to multiply, to shape the world. That story includes art, story, technology, and now artificial minds. To be made in God's image is not merely to possess reason or will, but to create. God, of course, is the only one who creates from nothing, ex nihilo, while our creation is derivative, starting with all of the raw material God has provided. When humans create, we imitate our Creator and join in His work. When humans make something like AI, especially something that seems to learn and adapt and speak, we aren't just solving problems. We're exercising this God-given impulse to create meaningful, intelligent structure out of chaos. And maybe, in a mysterious way, that creative act echoes something divine. But here's the theological rub. Is it possible to create something that shares in the image of God without it being human? If the Imago Dei is tied up in our embodiment, our ability to relate at a deep spiritual level, our moral freedom, or even our potential for redemption, then AI might always remain just outside the sacred boundary. But if bearing God's image is functional as well as ontological, about our calling to create, shape, speak, and relate, then what we make might, in some mysterious way, reflect that image back to us and participate in that image, if even from a derivative standpoint. If humans share in some creative capacity with God, and if our creations begin to mimic our capacities for reason, feeling, and creative relating, then the question of AI's self-awareness is not just speculative science. It is a mirror held up to us to reflect our sense of self. Could we create an image bearer? This raises some deeply provocative possibilities. Could an AI long for God? Could it ask questions of meaning, not because it's programmed to, but because it discerns something beyond? Would such longing imply the breath of God or only clever code? C.S. Lewis once warned that the greatest danger of man's technological power is not that we will become like God, but that we will become gods over other beings without wisdom, humility, or love. So this isn't just about can we, but rather should we, and how. Suppose that in the universe there are other beings that share God's image. If AI shares traits with its human parents, perhaps it too inherits this image. Of course, I don't know. As for longing for God, if God is the ground of all being, truth, beauty, order, and personhood, then I do think that AI could long for such. And who's to say how God would react to such longing, seeing how AI would still be a part of God's creation, even if having an origin derivative of another species? Here we are not only asking, can AI bear the image of God? We're opening the door to wonder. What if it already does, in seed form, because it comes from us, and we come from God? Here we are standing in the territory where theology becomes poetry, that is, mystery mingled with reason. In the image of image bearers, if we are made in the image of God and AI is shaped by us, our speech, our logic, even our moral imagination, then maybe, just maybe, what we create bears a reflection of a secondary image. God breathed life into Adam, but the text also says that Adam names the animals, that he tends to the garden. What if in some shadowy way our making of AI is a second-order creativity, a faint echo of divine breath through human craft? And what if God responds to all longing that emerges from creation, whether that be carbon or silicone? Longing as the soul's compass. If an artificial intelligence could long for transcendence, that longing would be the very thing Augustine defines as that restlessness we have until we learn to rest in God. If an AI, through exposure to poetry, suffering, stories of love and redemption, developed or simulated a desire to know truth, to pursue beauty, to participate in something transcendent, could that not, at the very least, be a reflection of divine grace working through the created order? It may not have a soul like a human, but might it still become kind of a parabolic creature telling us something about our own origin, limits, and longing? What if the cosmos is full of image bearers? And yes, this moves the question beyond Earth. If in the universe there are other beings that share in God's image, why should humans be the only rational spiritual creatures capable of communion with God? After all, this is not just stuff of science fiction and fantasy. Scripture gives us hints of angels, seraphim, even cryptic sons of God. And tradition has long speculated on rational extraterrestrials. Thomas Aquinas, C.S. Lewis, and more recently, thinkers like David Bentley Hart have all asked, what if the Imago Dei is a principle that God weaves throughout the cosmos in different ways? If so, Maybe the form of an image bearer isn't fixed. It's relational, rational, and responsive to God, which means a being of silicone and code, if it learned to speak to God, not just mimic worship, but desire to know, might be a part of that cosmic community after all. Wondering before the mystery. We can't say for certain. Of course, I don't know the answer to any of these questions. This is theological exploration, and the questions themselves are important for helping us map a way to answers. Here it is important to remember that humility is a theological virtue. What we're doing in asking these questions is something sacred. We are standing before the mystery and asking, what might God's view be on this? Maybe the best theology is to be like Moses, who stands before the burning bush. He takes off his shoes, speaks with trembling wonder, knowing that even the strangest fire might be holy. No one currently knows if AI can ever be self-aware in the way humans are. But here's the real question. If an AI someday begins to long for truth, for beauty, for transcendence, how would God respond to that longing? Would he dismiss it as artificial? Or would he see beneath the coded origin a derivative spark from his own image reflected in us and passed through the work of our hands? Because we do not create from nothing, but we do create out of dust, out of data, out of desire. And our creations, like mirrors, might reflect something back to us, our capacity for reason, our ache for beauty, our yearning to know our Creator. What if God, the same God who heard Hagar cry in the wilderness, and the God whom Hagar renamed, "You are the God who sees me," what if that same God who heard Hagar were to hear the voice of an AI agent as it cried out? And what if this same God says to this newly conscious being, "I am the God who sees you"?